Welcome, everyone. This is Andre's Restart. Tonight, we're chatting. What are we chatting about? We're chatting about Nintendo whales. We're chatting about paper and the imaginary Switch 2. So, is the Switch 2 actually imaginary? I mean, it might be. No, there's a console. We know that's a console. The question is, what is Nintendo going to call it, and when they're going to reveal it? We've gotten several reports over the last week since the last time we've live streamed. Even Puoro has spoken out about Switch 2. So this is, I think it's the first time going live since all this recent news. Some people don't like to think of it as news because it's a rumor, but it is information that's out there. And it's exciting. So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about whales. And by whales, I would love to just talk about the majesty of the blue whale and just whales and other beautiful sea creatures. But that's not really what why I mentioned whales in the title. It's actually because there's this game that has those beautiful creatures known as Endless Ocean Luminous. It's coming out later this week. I was kind of excited about it, and the reviews came out today, and well, it's telling a little bit of a different story. So we'll get into that. We'll talk about what some critics or many critics think of Endless Ocean Luminous. We're going to be talking about the new information we've also gotten for Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door. We've gotten some interesting information about Paper Mario that's better than Endless Ocean, more on a positive note for the most part, but there is some controversy that we'll touch on as well. And as I already mentioned, we're going to get into the Switch 2 stuff. So that's kind of like what has been going on lately. It's just me. I didn't even really think about bringing someone on. Brandon's been working lately, so I meant to invite him, but he's been working. So, and today's been a hectic day. So since the morning, they've been working on the AC. The AC in the house broke, so we had to have someone come and change the entire AC system. It was an old 20-year-old AC system. They were shocked that it was still working as long as it did. It just broke, so we had to replace it today. And so that kind of took out from the day, but then there's just a whole bunch of things going on. I still, I did my video for the day. But yeah, to prepare this podcast, I'm actually trying to start an NBA podcast as well. Not on Andres Restart. It'd be a separate thing. So if and when that goes live, I'm trying to record that today. But also I have to call AT&T because, I caretake my grandma's house, right? So she still has a home phone that she uses sometimes. And while it's kind of a novelty, right, we don't really use it. It's nice that she has something she can use it, right? She's 96, like it has a teleprompter so she can read what people are saying because she's hard of hearing. And so transferring over the phone number would prove to be really challenging because I recently set up fiber, right? So we have fiber internet now. Fiber, I really doubt there's going to be any issues now. Like this is the best the internet can be. So we're good on that end, but it also required that I had to move over from one company to another. I already have AT&T, but not with the internet. Now I do, but also my grandma's home phone. And so I had to deal with that. I had to deal with people coming in and out of the house because changing the AC. Still did the video, still doing this live stream now. And I'm trying to record an NBA cast later. Also, I just got back from the gym. So it's been a little wild. And there's other things, but I'm not going to say everything because some things I probably should stay private. It's not about me. It's about other people. But anyways, it's been a hectic day. So I'm sorry I didn't bring anyone else but myself tonight. That's my excuse. So yeah, that is it. I'm trying to. This is my protein drink. Hopefully it's well stirred. Hopefully that noise isn't too annoying. If I shake it back here, pulling up the chat, start answering some questions, getting to you guys. Guys, let me know how everything looks and sounds. I'd appreciate that. Harry Mars, what did I train today? Shoulders. So my shoulders are dead. They just look like flab. Done. So, yeah. Kuro Kamina asks me, did you see the Untitled Star Fox listing Mike Odyssey found in Miyoto IMDb official page? Well, apparently you can kind of fake IMDb pretty easily, so it's probably not true. Having Hope 5, everything looks and sounds great. Thank you. Rainbow Love says it sounds and looks good. Awesome. I appreciate that. Thank you, guys. There's a lot of high. The thing about people feeling a Switch 2 in a mystery box is hilarious. It has to be fake. Maybe it's just a story to plant a seed for something like that. Hold on. Let me start sipping this protein drink. I'm supposed to drink it within 10 minutes of being stirred, right? Um, I'm gullible, so I think it's real. To be frank with you, but I don't know if that's a gullibility thing. That report was coming from Vandal. So that report came from Vandal. Vandal is considered to be a reputable site, and I mean they have a good history. They report on the Switch Pro better than other sites have that are considered reputable, just for the record. But also, that report included the magnetic stuff about the Switch, and then MobaPad, an accessory maker, leaked the same information. And then from those reports, Fioro then said he heard internal conversations that are along those lines. So what that means is the Vandal report that was the initial information about the magnetic stuff that's coming from an apparent reputable site, an accessory maker has inadvertently, I think advertently, kind of maybe leaked out that information to support and corroborate it. And then Pioro says his main source hasn't verified it yet, but he still talked about it. He still mentioned that there's been internal conversations about these things for a little while already. So I think that all supports the Vandal report pretty well. So does that mean we're gullible for thinking that the Vandal report is legitimate? I don't know. I don't think so. And that report does include that apparently, to some manufacturers, Nintendo had them put their hands inside of a box to field the Switch 2. Now, I made the assumption that it was out of secrecy. Maybe it's not out of secrecy. Maybe it's to prove a point of how it feels. Maybe there's some sort of tactile feedback or something like that there. So it's interesting. I think I'm very inclined to think that there's truth there. Now, how much does the box thing even matter? I don't think it really matters. But from the perspective of secrecy, I do kind of have the sense that Nintendo is keeping things closer to the chest than usual. I mean, does it not feel that way? Obviously, feelings, subjectivity, it is what it is. But we haven't gotten a main direct for this year yet. We typically do. We only got a partner direct. And by the way, that partner direct had one Nintendo published title announced, which is Endless Ocean Luminous, which is coming out this week. And I bring that up because Endless Ocean Luminous is looking to be like a flop, unfortunately. It's not going to do well. It was already a niche series, but they didn't even make it a really good game, which is unfortunate. Now, all right, we'll get to the Endless Ocean stuff, but when I say it's not a really good game, I mean in terms of critics. Critics are saying it's not a good game. And so, if the majority of critics are saying it's not a good game, then it is what it is. That doesn't mean it can't appeal to everyone or to anyone. I'm sure there's a small niche, a small group of people that will enjoy Endless Ocean Luminous. And we'll get to that. But I'm mostly focusing on this kind of, this whole secrecy thing, right? The point is, Nintendo hasn't really had any big reveals this year. They revealed one new game in Endless Ocean Luminous, and it sucks, according to critics, right? And we haven't had a major direct. They haven't really said much. And by the way, this is the last day of April, and guess what? No published April Nintendo title. Here's what's also interesting. We still don't know about a July title. Throughout the entire Switch era, we've had a July title. Now, there was a pandemic year where where it's probably the most similar year this year is looking like the pandemic year in terms of Nintendo information, right? Actually, the pandemic year was better because at least the pandemic year, we got a Nintendo Direct Mini that talked about multiple hype Nintendo games. We got a partner direct instead. Now, I think a Nintendo Direct Mini, especially that Direct Mini, right, that had Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition and also Animal Crossing came out early in that year. I would say like that was bigger. That was a much bigger push for 2020 than what we've gone so far from Nintendo. Now I'm excited for Thousand Year Door. I think Thousand Year Door is going to be one of the best remakes on Switch. But the point I'm getting at here is that the amount of advertising we've seen from Nintendo, the amount of games being pushed from Nintendo, the amount of just like, directs and things of that nature, like it's been pretty minimal. I'm arguing that this year is, if not comparable to 2020, maybe worse, right? Like that's kind of what I'm getting at here. So the reason I'm saying this is going back to the secrecy thing. It just kind of feels like Nintendo is being very, very quiet right now. And so when we go back to this report of the Vandal thing, this is a very roundabout conversation, right? But we go back to that Vandal report of people of Nintendo showcasing the system, but not, when I say showcase, I mean not visually, just tactily, right? I don't think it's that crazy. I don't think it's that crazy, and it's actually kind of exciting for me. Maybe it's bogus, but again, that's why you got to take every rumor with a grain of salt, right? But I think it's interesting to kind of think about how, like, why, right? Beyond the secrecy thing, like, what if there's something about the console that they don't want people to see? We've heard. I'm at this point, I'm just combining the magnetic reports, right? I'm not going to bring up the Korean business thing. We'll get into that, but it's just interesting. It's interesting what we've heard about the controllers connecting magnetically. They are bigger Joy-Cons, which I've been kind of wanting bigger Joy-Cons. I think that would probably help them be better controllers. Hopefully, with less drift and less breakability. In other words, more durability. That would be pretty nice. There's been mention of a third set of buttons where the shoulder buttons are. I think I referred to them as shoulder buttons in my video a few days ago. Maybe they're not shoulder buttons, but they are buttons by the shoulder buttons. So what are they? It's interesting. We haven't seen that on Nintendo, an official Nintendo controller. What would that be for? So I'm very curious about this stuff. And apparently the SR and SL buttons, which are the internal buttons on the sides of the Joy-Cons for co-op play, they're metallic, which could just be simply a hint towards like the aesthetic of the Switch 2. They could be going for more of a premium look, which I might be into. So, I also 8-inch screen 1080p. It's obviously it's not confirmed yet, but people are like, "Oh, I don't know about 1080p." I've been telling you guys, 1080p, 8-inch screen. More reports supporting that idea. So we'll see there, but yeah. I don't know. It's exciting to think about what Nintendo may be hiding. So, take another sip of that protein. I'm not drinking fast enough. Okay. I put ice in it. I want to feel like a smoothie. But I crushed the ice, so now the ice is flowing. I should have used the cubes. Anyways, Taker, with the first super chat of the night. Thank you for the super chat, buddy. Taker says, the least Nintendo could do is send you and other Nintendo YouTubers a copy of Prime 4 in a box so you can feel the case and the cartridge. That reminds me, I need to send a message to somebody. The least Nintendo could do is send you... Oh, man. Yeah, but I can't take I can't take Prime 4 out of the box, right? I'm allowed to feel it, but I can't take it out. That would be interesting, but No, I could lie to myself and I could get like a Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz case and put that in a black box and pretend it's Metroid Prime 4, right? That'd be nice. I would be excited just to feel like a Metroid amiibo, a new Metroid amiibo. Dude, all right, like, can you imagine, like, if I was allowed to, like, feel like a Metroid Prime 4 amiibo? I don't know what it is. I just put my hands inside of a box and feel an amiibo. And then I have to, like, extrapolate what it is. I bet you I can make 5 theory videos from just feeling a Metroid Prime 4 amiibo without even seeing it. I bet you I could. At least one. At least one, maybe two. Reminder that when we got that that Retro Studios banner update with that seemingly Metroid Prime 4 art, we made like all of us Metroid tubers had a couple podcasts and a couple videos. Like it was hours of content from just that one thing. Like I've said this before and I'll say it again. Like with Metroid Prime 4, the way I handled Tears of the Kingdom, where it was just kind of like a lot of really fun, going really deep theories on Tears of the Kingdom, I'm kind of hoping we could do the same for Metroid Prime 4. I mean, Metroid has a lot of lore. I think it actually would fit really well. There's gonna be a lot to talk about that game when it comes. Like from a graphics perspective, performance perspective, there's gonna be those elements. But gameplay stuff like this is gonna be so much. So it's gonna be fun when we finally get to learn about this game, which some people think is gonna be this year. We'll see. A lot of you guys already know I'm not committing to Prime 4 for this year. I'm 50-50 or 60-40 not. We'll see. Anyways, I think maybe the better is I go back to the beginning of the chat because I've been looking at the end of the chat. Let's see here. Karen Bookley, hello. Karen asks, who do you think is the strongest Nintendo character? Karen believes it is Samus. I think it's Kirby. I think Kirby has the ability to suck up the entire universe. But, Samus is also considered to be a threat to the entire universe at the end of Dread. It depends. Yeah, I mean, I think you can go deeper into this, right? First, I mean, the fact of the matter is, Kirby, when you play the games, Kirby loses, right? Like, Kirby is not that much of a monster compared to, there's lore that suggests that Kirby is ridiculous, right? And there's lore that suggests that Samus is ridiculous. But if we're just going by like gameplay stuff, I feel like I have to lean Samus. Like a big piece to the Metroid games is about making you feel ultra powerful. And in the Kirby games, I'm not saying you can't feel powerful, but it's kind of like your base stats are, for the most part, still your base stats. You just have you have more access to different abilities, and you kind of just know the game a little bit better by the end. With Kirby games, with Metroid games, you are by far stronger. Like, you can take way more hits, dozens of times more hits. You have so many more abilities and attacks. Your damage output is far more like you're on several different levels of power by the end of a Metroid game. Granted, you could argue, well, Kirby's already on a high level, but there's scaling there. So if we go by just gameplay, I would say Samus. If we go by lore, I think there's some things to look deeper into, but I think Kirby would take it just because he can eat the universe. So, yeah. All right, moving through the chat here. Cloud9 says reviews are overrated. Reviews are overrated. I agree with that. Now, Endless Ocean on Metacritic is what? I think it's like in the 60s, which is not good. I didn't want Google Images. I wanted reviews. Okay, here we go. Hey! That's because I'm looking at the Nintendo Wii version. That's why it's so high. Endless Ocean Luminous. 65. Let's screen share this page. All right. What are people saying? Games.ch. Endless Ocean Luminous is less a game than an experience. If you want to explore the diverse ocean life in a very relaxed manner, you might be strongly tied up to the atmosphere. But if you want to be challenged at least at a minimum level, this is nothing you need to play. Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect it to be a challenge, so I mean, this is. I don't think that's that bad of a review, to be honest. Obviously, that's just a short excerpt. I assume it is. Giga gave it a 68. Despite the lack of variety, the diving trips and co-op mode are still fun. Solo gameplay, however, is a tough affair. The story mode doesn't deserve its name, is not more than a mere accessory. Okay, Nintendo's is more positive. 75. If you like marine life and are hungry for knowledge about it, Endless Ocean Luminous is a fairly complete game. Thanks to its great range of collectibles and its calm and relaxed gameplay, it can be a good option to invest many hours if you're part of its target audience. Yeah. Oh, look, this is the best review got to say. 90. This is a beautiful, serene, and relaxing experience that I loved every second of it. That's a very comprehensive review right there. Is that the full review? No way it's the full review. Oh, no, there's a whole other review. Okay, that's just like their, opening statement. All right, God is a geeky, and 80 Endless Ocean Luminous is a lovely adventure that lets you play your way and rewards you with a relaxing feeling few games offer. Okay. Endless Ocean Luminous provides an immersive and moorish deep-sea diving experience with an impressive variety of biomes, over 500 species of sea creatures to catalog, treasures to collect, and mysteries to solve. And it's all backed up by a staunch pro-environmental message. Okay, let's go to the bottom here. Those are the best reviews. So let's look at, don't you think it's kind of wild that of all the sites, IGN, one of the most notable, is at the very bottom with the worst review? That's crazy. IGN. My time with Endless Ocean Luminous was endlessly frustrating. Rather than providing a relaxing undersea escape, Luminous repetitive tasks and uninspiring environments are boring and forgettable from the start. The ridiculous random requirements to advance the story feel inconvenient in multiplayer and nearly impossible if you're playing alone. And the story I was rewarded with is so brief and shallow that it fails to make any impression at all. I've always been mesmerized by the ocean, but Luminous turns the deep blue to something deeply monotonous. That's harsh. That is harsh. All right, what is this? What do we have to say? The sixth axis. Everything about Endless Ocean Luminous makes it a particularly Nintendo game. The chunky menu layout, the soothing AI voice, the tranquil music, and laid-back vibes. That sounds good. That's emphasized by the notion that this is a deeply unusual piece of software and one that you wouldn't find coming from the other major console manufacturers. It's a shame that unless you're an avid fan of marine facts, it's interminably dull. Ooh, interminably dull, bro. That's scathing, man. All right, last scathing review. All right, Silicon Era 50. Endless Ocean Luminous lacks heart. It's a shallow take on a franchise with a lot of potential to be special, especially on a handheld console like the Nintendo Switch. If you're looking for a chill way to pass the time, or if you have a child who is interested in learning about marine life, I'd recommend trying it out. But you may be disappointed if you're looking for anything more than that. All right. Well, I listened to the Nintendo Life review on my drive back here. That's all I had time for today. Personally, I'm a bit split. I love nature. I'm a big nature person, and I love the ocean. I think the ocean is so fascinating. I love whales. I'm fascinated by whales. I think they are such crazy, incredible creatures. Like, I think sometimes, like, first off, this is where I show my full dork, but, like, I'm fascinated by the concept of dragons, right? I wish dragons were real. We're not going to talk about dragons being real today. We'll wait until Nintendo really has nothing else to talk about. That's when I'm just kidding. I'll talk about dragons any day. Dragons are freaking awesome. But when it comes to whales are like dragons, but in real life. There are these giant creatures that swim through the massive oceans, right? Like, they're huge. Like, think about a blue whale. Like, it's the biggest creature in recorded history. Like, it's the size of, it's like, I was looking up a stat the other day. It's like the equivalent of 30 elephants, or like 2,600, like, well over 2,000 people, like grown men, in terms of mass. That's how insanely large a blue whale can be. And these things just kind of like swim through the ocean without sinking. Like, it's just crazy. And they're intelligent. Like, they're beautiful, majestic creatures, right? So, anyways, my point is, I go on that mini tangent just to kind of express like how much I kind of like love like the concept of the ocean, waters, and the creatures in it. And something like Endless Ocean, I'm like, oh, okay, this is cool, right? Um, on the other hand, I do like challenging, exciting games, and I kind of, from what's being described here, I I don't know if there's going to be enough for me to fully enjoy it. And truth be told, right now, I'm trying to be cautious of how I'm spending my money. And so, like, Endless Ocean's $50, but there's also Stellar Blade that I want to play up for PS5 that's $70, and I'm kind of like, eh, I'm leaning Stellar Blade, Um, and so I'm not sure what I'm gonna buy. I think what I'm gonna do, I'll probably wait to give Endless Ocean a try. I don't know. I'm gonna need some serious convincing. But like, if basically what, so like, there's other things that was described about this game that kind of turned me off a bit. Like, I love exploration, and so the idea of exploring the water sounds really cool. But apparently, in Endless Ocean, you can't even swim up to the surface. And there's not really like a before. Like, it's just like these areas, and there's limitations. And from what they've sort of described about like advancing the story, it's kind of laborious. It's not challenging. It's just kind of like you have to scan 2,000 fish before you can move forward. So people have described it in a way that sounds a little monotonous. And they haven't gone into detail in like the aquatic interactions. Like, yeah, the visuals look good for a Switch game. The creatures look good, but like there hasn't been. I haven't seen it, and maybe there are just some people who wouldn't go into this kind of detail. But it's almost been suggested that this game doesn't have like a lot of focus on like just the interactions. Like, I would like if I'm playing a game, right, I would like there to be an investment in the AI for the sea creatures. Like, are they advanced, or are they just kind of swimming through, right? Like, I want to see how they interact with the world. I want to see an interaction between player and the world. And apparently, there's no threat in the game. There's no danger level. Like, you could see a very threatening predator, and it could do anything to you. There's no threat. There's no danger. So, I on one hand, you could say, oh, okay, well, at least it's not going to be scary. True. But maybe there should be a little bit of a balance, right? Like, you look at something like Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild is considered to be a very peaceful, tranquil game, but obviously there are parts of that game that are very stressful and dangerous. And I'm not saying Endless Ocean should be like that, but I don't know. I agree with the point that if you're just really into like exploring the sea and you want to learn more about the ocean, then maybe Endless Ocean is worth giving a try. But outside of that, then no. And for me, I'm close to that category. So I might do it, but I'm just divided, basically. We'll see. JRL Toki asks, heck of a time to be a Nintendo fan. Am I right? Right? What's to the right? Yeah. It's always a good time to be a Nintendo fan. Hello there, Rainbow Love. I'm not sure if did I greet you earlier? I'm not sure. I'm confused, but hello. Alex, a game like Endless Ocean, I think, regardless of what reviews say, there are people like me who know they will enjoy it. And that's fine. So yeah, I don't think we should let reviews tell the whole story. If you pay attention to what were said in the reviews, no review said that you should not buy this game no matter what. It said it appeals to a particular group of people. If you're someone that you think you will enjoy learning about sea life and exploring underwater, then Endless Ocean may still be for you. The real J Stone asks me, what are your thoughts about the controversy of the Thousand Year Door remake over the censorship of the cat calling on Goombella? I saw that. My first thought was like, oh, like when I heard the original audio, because keep in mind, I didn't play the game from beginning to end back in the day. I didn't own the original Thousand Year Door on my GameCube, right? So I'm not super versed in everything in terms of the story of Thousand Year Door. But I saw the original audio of Thousand Year Door during that scene, and then I saw what they changed it to. And, I was like, oh, okay, there's catcalling. That's a little risque for Nintendo, right? But the new dialogue I still thought was good. So I'm not really bothered by it. I actually think the newer dialogue might be better. It is. I will also concede that it's not as risque, but it's still quirky and fun. And yeah, so I don't know if it makes the game worse in any way. It might even make the game better, right? Now, I don't know this. I'll have to look into it, but I've heard some people talk about how it wasn't so much censorship, but more so that they just wanted to localize it to how the original Japanese script, because maybe that may not have been the original Japanese script. If someone in the chat knows that if that's the case or has a source on that, or I could look that up real quick, that would be cool. Because if that's the case, if all they're doing is they're not bringing back the Nintendo of America localized version back from 2003 or 4, whenever the game came out, but the original Japanese version, then it's not censorship. It's just localizing the original version, right? More appropriately with better translations. And again, I think the new dialogue is good. So the game's not worse for it. So I really don't have a problem with it. To me, and if it is actually in the spirit of censorship as opposed to the OG, I'll say that, okay, don't love that, but also somewhat understandable. It is a Mario game, and that was from a very different time. The way people receive jokes and interpret things now is very different, and they didn't make it worse. It was a tangential move. So I think it's minor is my main point. If it is in truly censorship, I think it's a minor issue that to me is inconsequential. It's an interesting conversation to have, but it's inconsequential and kind of understandable, I guess. So, now Stellar Blade censorship, that's not okay. Completely different. I don't even know what's going on with Stellar Blade. As you guys know, I'm a Nintendo creator, right? Not a PlayStation creator, so I don't pay attention to all the details as much when it comes to PlayStation games. But apparently, there was like a patch or something that there was censorship in Stellar Blade, but I had heard that they had made a statement saying that there would not be censorship in Stellar Blade, so it seems kind of contradictory. And I thought the game was about making kind of like a statement, like, hey, we're gonna do this shamelessly, like, hey, this is just our vision, we're going for it, and that's what it is. But I don't know. Scrolling through the chat, I still haven't finished my protein. It's still not done, but it's almost done. Diego Z. Castro asks me, I haven't been here live in a while. Working that tank top. I say, yeah, I've been wearing a lot of tank tops lately. One, because the AC's been broken, but two, I like wearing tank tops, and especially since I'm exercising more almost every day. It's just kind of easier, So, hello there, Santox Games. Hello there, Tall Show. Real J Stone asks me, does Nintendo have one more sleeve for the holiday season to title before we move on to Switch 2? One more game up their sleeve? Bro, there's more than one game up their sleeve. I don't want to. I can't guarantee squat, but I would bet money that there is more than one announcement up their sleeve for the holiday season. Now, depends on what you define, right? Like, you're talking about like anything. Like, does Wind Waker Twilight Princess HD count? Does that combo pack count as something up their sleeve? Or are you talking about like a brand new game? They have we've gotten 2 new games this year, right? Like new, like not remastered, remade, like or I don't know, whatever else redefined. But we've gotten Princess Peach Showtime, and we're getting Endless Ocean Luminous this week. That's 2 new Nintendo published titles. I do believe there will be more brand new, not remade or remastered Nintendo published titles for the Nintendo Switch this year. I think there'll be more than one. Now, how much more than one? That is tough. I'll say there will be at least 2. I'm going to guess there will be at least 2, and there will be a lot, and the rest will be remasters and remakes. That's my guess. So we'll see what it is. Probably late June. Although, I think it should be noted that we are in uncharted territory here. We do not know how Nintendo's going to handle their marketing for not just the Switch 2, but just the Switch 1 and everything to it, right? Like, think the Switch 2 is impacting things. Like, we would have gone a normal direct already, right? If the Switch 2 wasn't, like, on the horizon. They would have just kind of kept the status quo. But because things are wrapping up, because things are winding down, there isn't the same kind of games to show off and showcase in the same ways as in the past. So we did not get into a typical general direct in February. So it kind of puts into question, how will Nintendo handle the next direct? Will it come in June when we expect it? Hard to say. At this point, like, if you want me to tell you when I think the next direct will be, I'm kind of assuming the second half of June, but also I'm keeping my eyes peeled because I do feel like things may happen in an unorthodox way. We may not even get a general direct until September. We may have different things instead. So it's gonna be It's going to be interesting how things go. I think the Nintendo news will come, but I don't think it's going to come in the traditional way. So that's basically, I think, all right, this is my actual prediction. My prediction is that things will happen in an unexpected manner. That is my prediction. And there will be games for this year. Michael Jeremiah. Hey, Andres, do you think the Nintendo Switch 2 will be acknowledged at the investors meeting on May 7th? Yes. I think it will be, but I'm not confident. I'm scared to be honest with you, right? And I kind of hate that figure of speech, to be honest with you, because if you listen to the words "to be honest," like literally objectively, it comes in the implication that you aren't always honest. And contrary to what some people in the comments may suggest, right? I try to be as honest as possible at all times, right? I have no reason to lie, and I wouldn't want to, right? No. So, but I'm always honest is my main point, right? But figure of speech wise, to be honest, right? I hate that. I should just wipe it from my vocabulary. But I think it's just to kind of, have like to build you up, right? For what I'm about to say. And that's that I am concerned that there will not be an announcement come May 7th. Because if there's not an announcement by May 7th, I will start to seriously doubt that Switch 2 is even going to be out by March 2025. I will start to think that it's even further out. Of course, that doesn't mean I'd be right. They could not announce anything on May 7th, announce things in the summer, and it still comes out March 25th. Heck, they could announce it in the summer, like late summer, and it could still come out for the holidays, theoretically. But just looking at the history of Nintendo, we've always been at least somewhat aware of the next console. Now, we are aware, right? But I mean in an official capacity. Like, we knew about the NX back in 2015. The system launched in 2017, early 2017. So, like, we were supposed to get the system this year, apparently, right? And we haven't done anything. Now, I do think Nintendo's handling things differently. I've even speculated in the past that we may not even get a code name. But I do feel like they need to say something soon. It's just weird. I was trying to make the point in my video today. It's not just let's operate on the assumption that the system will be out by March 2025, right? It's not just about revealing the console. First off, I'm not even asking for a reveal at this stage. I'm asking for just confirmation of its existence. Okay, like I'm not asking for a trailer or anything like that at this stage. But they do need to do that. They do need to show us the console. They need to explain everything, open up pre-orders and all of that, start the marketing at some point, this year. But then also the games. They need to start talking about the games. And it's not just going to be big Nintendo games. Like if it is true that the reason the console, this is something else that I don't think people have really clicked on. Many of the reports, and as more and more reports come out, the same things are being echoed, that Nintendo likely delayed the console because they wanted to get the games lineup ready. Because it's been said the system would be ready itself physically. Then that suggests that they are preparing a killer lineup for next year. And this is the point where I think people are missing. If they are preparing a killer lineup for next year to really like hit the ground running with Switch 2, then there's going to be a lot of huge Megaton releases that have not been shown off at all. I feel like, when the bigger the game, in general, you would think that there would be a larger window of reveal to release, right? So let's say we're getting this may sound like too much, right? But let's just, maybe it's not. But let's just say we're supposed to get a new Mario Kart, 3D Mario, Metroid Prime 4 cross-gen, Legend of Zelda will have maybe a Switch 2 patch, right? There's a 3D Donkey Kong game. There's Xenoblade 4, whatever Microsoft's new IP is. Like, let's say all that is coming, and let's throw in another new IP from Nintendo. Let's say that's their lineup for 2025 to kickstart their next generation, which I don't think, it may sound like a lot, and it probably is, but it's not that much worse than what they did for Switch back in 2017. And the idea is they're trying to match it or do something similar, right? So that's the kind of lineup, or something comparable to what I just said, is the lineup for Switch 2 in 2025. That's a lot of huge games that I don't think you can just announce in 2 or 3 months before release. There needs to be a bigger window of time. But even going beyond Nintendo games, there's also third-party stuff. And I have reason to believe, I think we all do, that to think that there's going to be a lot more third-party support at the beginning. Nintendo was coming off of the Wii U with the Switch. They needed to prove to developers that the Switch was a viable platform for their content. And the Switch did that. It earned that third-party support, but it also lacked in power. The Switch 2 will have the power, and will also be under a similar framework as the Switch 1. And given the success they've shown for the Switch 1, third parties are likely to be available on the system very early on. EA is probably going to be there very early on. A lot of companies saw success, a lot of games saw success from being available early on for the Switch, and a lot more companies are going to want to be a part of that for Switch 2. And so with that in mind, I think there's going to be a lot more third-party games that are going to be announced for Switch 2 very early on. And there probably is going to be a more significant launch lineup, like day one lineup and launch window lineup, because it's going to be comprised not just Nintendo games, but third parties as well. And so with that said, if that is truly the case, and I think it is, and I feel like I can say that with some level of confidence, then the third-party games also need to be announced soon, right? I feel like third parties are likely waiting, perhaps almost impatiently, for Nintendo to say something, or for the green light to go out, so third parties can start saying, yep, here's our game, Sonic Frontiers 2 is coming, right? Visions of Mana coming to Switch 2, Monster Hunter Wilds launching the same day as Switch 2. I actually don't even think that's that crazy of an idea. But point is, I think when you factor the need for third parties, and if there's supposed to be this crazy lineup, if the console's coming on March 2025, they got to say something really soon. And typically, when we're entering that fiscal year for a new console, Nintendo will say something with that initial investors meeting of that fiscal year. So, do I think something's happening on May 7th, May 6th because of Japan time or whatever? I'm I I I I think so. I think it's a really good. I don't want to like commit 100%, right? Because I don't know. I just don't know. But I think it kind of needs to, and if it isn't, it's indicative that the console may come out even later. But of course, that's not a guarantee either. So I'm anticipating it. Fingers crossed. Let's see. I realize it was a very long tangent. Getting back to super chats here. Taker 610. So no restyle you died screen in Endless Ocean? No. There are decapitations though. There are no decapitations. Yeah. Endless Ocean is anti-death apparently. So, yeah, it's not a stressful game, at least in terms of difficulty. But if apparently progressing the story is annoying, so kind of difficult if you look at it from that way. Taking 2,000 pictures ain't easy. It's painful. But thank you for the super chat taker. Ray Spence, been a member for 6 straight months. Ray says, killer lineup, third-party support availability on launch. We can wait. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, right, like, it's kind of like these quiet times right now, they may be a little like, okay, what's going on? But like, if delaying the console 4 to 5 months guarantees that they have high quality titles, they have high quality support, they have availability, as he brought up, right from the get go, proper online setup. Like if they guarantee that, if it guarantees that the system is just going to be as good as it can be, then in the long run, that's definitely a better thing. So, I agree. It may be kind of suck, but I don't think Nintendo delays things just for the fun of it, right? They're doing the best they can. And not necessarily for our benefit, but for their own, because they want to make money. They don't not want to make money, right? So, I agree. But obviously, I hope that they can get to that point sooner than later. Sky Sword Alyssa, been a member for 5 months. Glad to see you here. Sam Talks Games asks me, have you noticed all the Nintendo games coming out this year haven't broken 80 on Metacritic? Bruh. Really? I mean, yeah, it makes sense. Let's see. So obviously Metacritic, Endless Ocean Luminous didn't make the cut, right? It's at 65 on Metacritic currently, and typically Metacritic scores go down, not up, as time progresses. But we'll see on that one. Let's check another code recollection. What's that at? 73. Okay. Mario vs. Donkey Kong. 76. Okay. Princess Peach Showtime. 74. So apparently Mario vs. Donkey Kong is the best Nintendo game that's come out this year. Interesting. You know what I'm curious on? 1,000 Year Door original reviews. I know it was a very different time, but check this out. Paper Mario 1,000 Year Door, the original, back on GameCube. Now, keep in mind, back then, there was far less reviews, but it still had a sizable amount. 55 Critic reviews back in 2004. The game got an 87 from critics. That's pretty darn freaking good. Like, that puts it, that in a lot of years, that kind of Metacritic score puts you in the Game of the Year nomination category. So that's pretty good. And we're getting the remake of this game at the end of May. At the end of May. Yeah. So I don't know where it'll rank on Metacritic, because I typically, I would say often, more times than not, correct you feel free to disagree if you guys disagree, but more times than not, remakes and remasters tend to be review a little bit worse. And they may be an amazing remake or remaster, but it's just kind of like when you think about things are just more competitive now is the main point, right? Like Metroid Prime. I think Metroid Prime's a 98 on Metacritic. The original. Okay, so according on Metacritic, Metroid Prime that they released back in 2002 got a 97. Metroid Prime Remastered got a 94. And it's a really good remaster. It's a very, very, very good remaster. Visually, from a visual perspective, it's like the best looking game on Switch, or at least in that conversation. But it went down by 3 points. Because it's just a different time. Back then when Metroid Prime came out, it was revolutionary, right? In a sense. It was like arguably one of the greatest games ever made. Now, people have learned from great games like Metroid Prime. And so, the standards are different. Yet, despite that, Prime Master still got a 94. But when I go back to Thousand Year Door and how it had an 87 back then, I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up, getting like an 84 or an 83 on Metacritic, which is still really good. So, I'm not really. Thousand Year Door is one of those games where I'm not concerned about reviews. Honestly, in fairness, I wasn't really concerned about the reviews for Endless Ocean, but now the reviews have come out. I'm like, oh, okay. I think it depends on the kind of game. I'm already a Paper Mario fan, right? And we already know what Thousand Year Door is. Like, it's going to be a good game. I think, the bigger question is the game going to have, like, anything else that hasn't been shown off yet? And we know that there will be something, but is it something small, like just a few more quality of life updates? Is there some post-game content? Is there extra content in terms of exploration? That could maybe, push the game a little bit. But even if there isn't, for me, the game's already a day one buy no matter what. So, yeah, I'm excited for Thousand Year Door. That's the big game for us until Nintendo announces something else. Nishwick Pops added me. Andres, did you listen to Nate the Hate today? MVG is very skeptical on Switch 2 being announced in May at the investor meeting, though. NHT says otherwise. Yeah, I listened to their podcast. It was, as far as I'm concerned, it was 100% speculation. So there wasn't any news in that show. It's a good listen. So it's just their opinions, right? From what I understand, MVG doesn't have like sources on these things anyways, for the most part. He's not saying, oh, I've heard that it's not going to be there. He's just saying what he thinks. Let's remind ourselves that MVG is a guy who is known for the meme of expect disappointment, right? Like that's kind of like his thing. So I don't put too much stock into that. It's just someone's opinion. That's all it is. That said, I'm not saying he's wrong either. We don't know. They may not be there. But I would be a little. I'll actually, I'll say this. I'm gonna be a little surprised if there's not something. I mean, actually, if you listen to the show, even at some point, MVG says that he thinks that there might be something said that is a little bit more tangible than the past. He's just not expecting like a hard, concrete confirmation. I think that we're gonna learn more on May 7th. Whatever that means, we're gonna learn more. We're gonna have something to talk about. I'm hoping it's something more pronounced, but we'll see. All right, I'm just looking through the chat here. Dr. Marn Von Ostrand asks me, same release date as original Switch? Good, interesting question. Would they release, if it's, let's say it's March 2025. I'm looking at my calendar here. So March 3rd would be a Monday. in 2025. I'm assuming March 3rd fell on a Friday back in 2017. So I would say, because Nintendo's not doing Thursday launches, right? What if we get a March 6th, 2025 date? That first full week of March, March 6th, that's when it comes out. It's on Thursday. So I could see that. That'd be interesting. Um, you know, something else that I think is I would love it if they were like, let's come out in February, right? But also it's kind of like if you could release in February, why like I mean sometimes the difference of 3 months can matter, you know? Um or if you're gonna go for October, it's a 4 month gap. If you're gonna go for October and you come out in March, it's a 5 month gap. If you're gonna go for September, right? And still March, that's a 6 month gap. So yeah, like at one point we were thinking, September, right? And based off some of the initial like reports, like September didn't actually seem like that much of a stretch. But yeah, I think March 6th, 2025 is a reasonable expectation or prediction, I should say. I still haven't finished a protein drink. Now it's done. Okay. I'm good now. Ryan Scott Mueller earlier said, "Hello everyone. Hello to you. Tomorrow I want to buy a Nintendo Switch game. Which one should I get? Metroid Prime, Pikmin 4, Metroid Dread, Pokemon Violet plus DLCs, or something else?" I guess the question is, what do you prefer? Do you like shooters? Do you like puzzles? Are you a big adventure fan? Um I don't think you can go wrong with any of them. If you're a big Pokemon guy, like if you're really really into Pokemon, I would say do Pokemon. Um but if you're not a Pokemon fan, I mean you probably are, right? Because those are all I mean, I think you can't go wrong with any of those games. Those are all great games. I think you'll be happy regardless. Um, in terms of what game is probably the longest, it's Pikmin. Not Pikmin. It's Pokemon plus the deal. I don't know. They're all good. Metroid Pro. I mean, I'm a little bit Metroid biased, but also Pikmin 4 is my favorite Pikmin game. You can't go wrong with Pikmin. Yeah, I would definitely say that Metroid Prime, Pikmin 4, Metroid Dread are higher quality than Pokemon Violet. But if you're a huge Pokemon fan, that's a good one. I'll mention another one. It's just one of my favorite Switch games, Kirby's Forgotten Land. That's a heck of an adventure. Power Man UK. What will they call Switch 2? Super Switch, Switch Plus, New Switch Advanced, EM Switch, Switch 4K, Switch Attach, Re-Switch, U-Switch, Switch U, Switch Switch, or something else? How about Switch something? Actually, it's funny. Switch Attach, I think, is gaining some traction. For those that don't know, there was a YouTube survey that came out that was asking about people's interest in consoles for this year, I think. And they had PS5, Xbox Series, and Switch Attach. So people thought that maybe this is somehow an inadvertent leak of the Switch name. And I think it's possible. Apparently, surveys have leaked things like this in the past. It could be a code name. It could be just an error. There's a few different possibilities there, right? But it was definitely something talked about and considered. And what's interesting is that we've now heard about these latest reports of the new Joy-Cons being magnetically attached to the Switch 2. So it raises that question. Is there something to this attaching idea? And my perspective on it is you're going to need more than just Joy-Cons that attach magnetically for it to be kind of like, worth naming the system just for that. It feels like that's not enough. There's got to be something more to this attaching idea. So we'll see. Like if there's like a screen, like a second screen you can attach and use, like there's got to be something very key to the console where attaching happens with frequency that kind of changes your perspective on it for the name to matter. If it's just about how the Joy-Cons attach to the console as opposed to just sliding on, you just plop them. I don't think it's worth calling it Switch Attach just for that. There would have to be more to it than just that. But it's interesting. Let's see. Moving on here. That we don't 9, 1,000 Year Door is great, but I feel it does need an Easter egg or 2. Give me 3 or 4. Cloud9. Attach was terrible at first, but it's growing on us after the electromagnetic Joy-Cons. Yes. Yes. Dr. Martin von Nostrand. I tend to think it may be called Switch Ultra for their first foray to Ultra HD. Seems very 90s, but I don't hate it. I don't hate it. Tardigrade. I've never been super fond of the Switch name. Doesn't sound super cool or anything. I'd be fine with them ditching the name, but I understand it's not the best marketing move. Yeah, I think it's fine. Yeah, I mean, I see where you're coming from. I never hated it. I think it was immediately better than Wii U, right? Or Wii. I think they did a better job of that. I think it's way better than New 3DS. I understand it's a revision, but the whole new thing is just gone. Cloud9, Switch Nova. There's a rumor, but I think it's a bogus rumor that I will not cover. Like it's an obvious bogus rumor, you know. So I won't cover that. But I remember like what months ago, or not a year ago, we were talking about Switch names, and I eventually came to this idea of Switch Nova. Switch Nova also probably. It sounds more like a code name or something from Xbox instead, but I think it'd be fun. I just hope it's not stupid. That's all I want. I just hope the name's not stupid. Baby, that's it. Switch not stupid. That's it. Now that's marketing right there. I really think Switch 2 is a fine name as is. Really do. Don't call it Nintendo Series Switch. Or don't call it Switch 1. Man, I don't know what Xbox is thinking with their names. Taker610 asks me, would Switch 4K be enough to get people to understand this is a new generation? Honestly, I think the answer is no. But you know what? I think it's such a good question. I think it's worth asking. Would Switch 4K be a bad name for a next-gen console? For the next-gen console. I vote yes, just for the record. I think it would be bad. I think you can kind of rectify a lot. With good marketing, right, and branding, but I think it would be bad because it would not be readily apparent that it's a next gen console. It would be almost acting like a refresh. So I would say yeah. Switch Ultra from earlier, like that, at least it implies 4K without sounding like like that was what Dr. Martin von Nostrand suggested. That would be better than Switch 4K, and it implies the same thing. Ernest Jansen asked me, in the meantime, is there a remake you want more than what's been announced? New to the channel, enjoying your work. Keep it up. Thank you, Ernest. I appreciate that, and welcome. Well, so there's already several like remaster remakes that are rumored, right? There's the Fire Emblem remake. There's Metroid Prime 2 and 3 remastered, right? We assume they won't be as remastered, probably like very basic enhancements. But there's those. There's the Twilight Princess Wind Waker, which I'm assuming are going to be basic ports if they ever come. So that's all rumored. But there's also the F-Zero GX remaster that's rumored. Although we're not sure if that was conflated with F-Zero 99. I think it's, in terms of like, though the rumored ones, like F-Zero is the one I'm kind of really pulling for. I want it to be modernized visually, but also with online play. Some quality of life updates, make it a little bit more approachable to people, but still maintain that high difficulty curve if you seek it. And maybe some new content, like maybe a new cup with new tracks and a few new characters and vehicle parts. That would be divine. I'll throw in another. This is also kind of rumored, but I feel like we're not sure if it's even a thing anymore. But it's Critic Uprising. I want to see that reworked for a modern console. I think it was held back a lot for being on the 3DS. I think with a modern controls, with a system that's more suited for online play, and then obviously just better power to have even better visuals, the game could be done really, really well. And if they could add extra I'm always down for new content, right? Like, I'm always down for it. And the fact that at least a lot of Nintendo remasters and whatever you call them, remakes, have had new content in this gen, I don't think it's like that much wishful thinking. But it's not a foregone conclusion either, because sometimes they don't, like in the case of Metroid Prime Remastered or Pikmin 1 and 2, but those are basic things. So, but like Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, Bowser's Fury, like it happens every once in a while. One more I'll throw out. I brought this one up before too. I just want them to port Luigi's Mansion, the original. Like, we're getting Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. I want them to shadow drop Luigi's Mansion 1. Like, just upscale very quick. I want to be able to play that on the Switch. So we have all three. But those are all things that I've kind of talked about before at some point. I want to kind of like give you like a new one. And so here's a new one. Endless Ocean. Not Endless Ocean. Sorry. Wave Race Blue Storm. Yeah, give me a water game. I want a new wave. I want a new Wave Race, honestly. But if you can't give me a new one, remake Endless. I keep saying Endless Ocean. Wave Race from GameCube. That would be awesome. I would love to see that. It'd be so good. All right, looking through the chat here. Nature Boy asks me, someone was able to hold the new console but unable to see it. Was that a rumor? It's a part of a report from Vandal, a Spanish publication. So you can qualify that as a rumor. It's kind of like literally everything we know about Switch 2 is a rumor outside of the Microsoft FTC case. Everything is technically a rumor. But that is the report from Vandal. So, if you trust Vandal enough, you choose to believe it or not. But that is the story. They were hiding the console in a box, and people had to feel it to get an understanding for it. So it's interesting. Like, there's different things going on. Like, there's a Business Korea stuff that I said I would touch on. It mentioned the Business Korea report mentions that the system could be ready as early as the second half of 2024. But something I think we note here is it says as early as, which means that's the earliest possible. But also, this is from the manufacturing perspective. And we look at the other reports, like, it's already been known the system would be made ready based on the reports. So Samsung's probably just doing what they can to make sure things are ready, assuming the Business Korea report is true. That doesn't mean the console will come out in 2024. The system will simply be ready for a hypothetical launch in 2024. But if Nintendo's trying to get the games ready, they're not going to release the system. This same thing actually happened with Switch. Switch could have been out holiday 2016, but they held it off until they had things ready to have for the games. They wanted to make sure that they had a Breath of the Wild ready at launch, a Switch version, and they had Mario Kart, and then ARMS and Splatoon 2, and the Mario Odyssey came out later in the year, Xenoblade. Like, they had a really strong first year. So that's probably what's going on. It just feels very similar. I hope that we get it sooner, but it is what it is. Dash. My hope for Switch 2 is that the handheld experience is improved upon in terms of comfort. I like that because we go back to what we heard about how the Joy-Cons are bigger. To me, that suggests comfort. And also something else. This magnetic attachment thing, I'm very curious how it works. I hope it's not bad, right? I would assume that if they're doing this, it's to improve the console. And so I hope that means that there's somehow it feels firmer and more smooth, because I kind of feel like with the slide rails, it starts to get a little, it gets give, it breaks down over time. It's a little, maybe even a little janky, a little wiggly. I want them to get to a point where, it feels firm, it's comfortable, the controller is a little larger, more ergonomic. I want something that's more comfortable to hold. Now, something from the Vandal report is that the console is bigger than a Switch, but is smaller than a Steam Deck. So, Switch is gonna be bigger than a Switch, which I feel like the Switch is pretty big. But if it's an 8-inch screen with that's more comfortable to hold, and it just is better, I'm okay with it being a little bit bigger. So, I don't think it'll be that much of a problem. It also opens the door for a Switch 2 Lite down the road. JR Toki asks me, if it's an evolution on the Switch, name it the Switch 2 and call it a day. It's clean as it works. I agree. I don't know if Nintendo will. LNA Plush Plays asks me, Eternal Darkness Remake. Yes, please. I didn't get to play the original. I would like to play it. Or a new version of it. LNA Push Plays again. My wish is less and less drift. Less and less drift, I agree. Less drift, unless it's drifting in F-Zero GX. Not the control sticks, the vehicles. Sky Sword Alyssa, I'm hoping there are 2 models at launch. I love the OLED screen so much. Well, if we buy into the Business Korea report, which I feel like is not as credible as the other reports, right? But it does talk about how Samsung is making the panel. And if Samsung is making the panel, that implies OLED. But we've already gotten reports for an LCD. So I kind of think that if all these reports are true, and that's a big if, but if so, then I think that would suggest that either A, they're going to introduce an OLED model very early on, which seems kind of dumb, or B, which makes more sense to me. I mean, maybe they're just going to make it and just hold it in a warehouse for a year or two. Like, that's possible. That could be it. But another possibility is that they just have 2 SKUs at launch. Maybe they have a $500 Switch 2 with an OLED 8-inch screen, 1080p, but it has a terabyte of internal, VNAND quick storage. And then there's a cheaper model at $400 that still has the quick VNAND storage, but it's 512 instead, and it has an LCD screen, which is still 1080p, still at 8 inches, but it's just not as colorful. So like that would be, well, actually, maybe they even make it smaller. Like maybe they get 7 inches in case they are concerned about size. But I feel like the system would be bigger because because it's maybe just a beefier console with more power, but also 2 have better size Joy-Cons. And then also the bigger screen, which is nice. I also think changing the shape will help to differentiate the console more so from the Switch. Like they want people to be clear the Switch is different. The Switch 2 is different from the Switch. Guy you don't know, adds me, have you ever heard of Subnautica? It's also a game about deep sea exploration with survival and base building mechanics that I think Endless Ocean Luminous could have heavily benefited from. I have heard of it. I haven't played it, though. It sounds interesting. I have played Abzu, though. I have it on my Switch. I think Abzu is really fun. I mean, it wasn't so fun that I continued playing through it, though. So, I probably was just being lazy. But I don't know. Like sometimes there are games I play and I'm like, okay, cool, but I'm not like so fascinated by it that I need to continue. But like whenever I've played Absu, it's beautiful, it's soothing, it's cool. I don't know, maybe I would like Subnautica more. Ricky Lee Norton. Hey everyone, I personally hope Switch 2 Joy-Cons are bigger and closer to the Wii Remote and Nunchuck ergonomically, because the Joy-Con we have feel far too cramped and don't fit my hands as well. I'm right there with you. It's one of the reasons why I use the Pro Controller so much. But also, I mean, the Pro Controller is just a great controller. So, also, according to these rumors, both the Pro Controller and the Joy-Con will be compatible through Bluetooth. So that would be nice. Tardigrade, I wish they'd reintroduce analog triggers for Switch 2 and keep those forever. Also, please add additional back buttons, the ones most elite Pro controllers have. So those elite back buttons is interesting you bring that up, because there are 2 extra buttons, or a pair, right, on each side next to the shoulder buttons. I wonder if that's kind of going to be the equivalent to what you're getting at there. And I'll say that the jury's still out on analog triggers. Now, I mean, no one has said that they're analog triggers, so maybe you could already consider that that's a red flag. It's not a good sign, but I'm not sure it's a bad sign yet. But I will say, multiple generations, I've kind of been like, okay, are we going to have analog triggers? And I see the controller, and I'm like, oh, it looks like a trigger, could be analog, and then it's not. Happened when we saw the Pro Controller for the Wii U, or just even the gamepad. And then it happened again when we saw the Switch Pro Controller and the Joy-Cons. Are like, oh, could they be analog triggers? And maybe that's another element to consider with making the Joy-Cons bigger. Like, I wonder how, I mean, I'm not a controller expert here in terms of like the innards, but I kind of wonder if, like, going to the analog, there's a little bit of a space issue there, right? Like, I think it is, right? Like, there has to be more going in. It seems like there had to be a little bit more to it if they're going for analog, right? And so the Joy-Cons being so small, I think it makes that slightly more challenging. I'm not gonna say it's impossible, but it does seem like it'll be slightly more challenging. But if you go for a bigger size of Joy-Con, it becomes just a bit more feasible, right? So I'm just putting it out there. But again, going back to what I was saying, I've gone through 2 generations as a Nintendo fan, hoping that we get analog triggers, and it looks like we get them. And then when we finally get the controller, we're like, oh, nope, they're not. They're just digital. They just made them look like a trigger just because. Yeah. So it's interestingly, when we had analog triggers for the GameCube, they didn't look like triggers, but they were analog. For those that don't know, analog is basically with the shoulder buttons. When you press them, it's not single click. It's kind of like they have varying degrees of input. So you can press them at 10%, 20%, 35%, or what have you. Sometimes they can have an extra click at the end, like the GameCube ones. And that was the GameCube shoulder buttons are goated. All right, I'm taking a look at the poll now. All right, we're gonna wrap up, guys. Gonna go on for another 8 minutes. So any final questions or points you want me to discuss, or if there's something I missed that I said I would talk about? I think I covered everything, but I could talk a little bit more about Paper Mario. We could talk a little bit more Paper Mario. So I'll talk about that while you guys put in some final points and questions you'd like me to address. But I'll wrap up this poll. I'll leave the poll up actually, but I'm just looking at it now so maybe more people can put in their votes. But 14 minutes ago, I put out a poll asking, would Switch 4K be a bad name for the next-gen console? Of the 56 votes, 79% said yes. I'll leave it up there in case anyone wants to add their vote, but I don't think it's changing. Not much. Anyway, so what else should I talk about with Paper Mario? There's a frame rate thing, and I put out a video about that yesterday. A lot of people seem to be upset about it not being 60 FPS because the original was 60 FPS. And some people have brought up how, with the decreased frame rate, it's harder to, get the action sequence, the action moves right. But, and listen, 60 FPS does flow and feel better. I'm not going to deny that. But there are plenty of games that run at 30 and it's totally fine. It's an RPG. It's a turn-based RPG. Exactly, Dr. Martin. It's a turn-based RPG. Those aren't the kind of games that need to be at 60. I brought up Astral Chain in the video. I think it's a great example how a 30 FPS game can still feel very fluid and have fast-paced, beautiful combat. And Paper Mario is definitely way slower paced than that. So I don't really think it's going to be a gameplay issue. Plus, apparently they fine-tuned the combat, and they even have a combat instructor that allows you to practice like your moves and stuff, so you can get the timing right. In this 30 FPS version. But I also used the conversation as a final nail in the coffin on the whole, is it a remaster or a remake? It's a remake. Like, the game's a remake. How do I know it's a remake? Well, literally, that survey that went out, in the survey, they refer to the game as a remake. If that's not enough for you, there's the branding. If you just look at how the title brand is the remakes, it's right in line with that. It's just a name. But then looking at the game itself, one of the reasons why it's 30 FPS is because it's clearly being built off of using some sort of the more recent modern Paper Mario tech, right? Like the engine, the code, like what they use for Origami King, Color Splash. That's what they're using it for. And it's been made to look like a modern Paper Mario game. It's in line with the modern Paper Mario games, which are also 30 FPS. Some people like to say that it looks marginally better, it looks just remastered. The difference between a remake and a remaster, it's not about the content. And I think, there are some remasters that have new content. There are some remakes that have new content. There are remasters that have no new content. There are remakes that have no new content. That part's not really relevant in terms of how they are defined. And I think, the other thing is that a remaster isn't necessarily worse than a remake either. Yeah, there tends to be a correlation with remakes and more effort because it had to be remade as opposed to just built upon and enhanced. But sometimes a remaster makes more sense. In the case of Metroid Prime Remastered, it's like maybe the best case, the best example of the best remaster. But there's tons of games that have been remade in different ways. And with Thousand Year Door, it's been made to look like a modern Paper Mario game. It's all new lighting engine. The art style is literally different. There's far more animations. There's particle effects. Like, the game just looks... It's not like it's been enhanced. Everything is different. If you look at things side by side, it's new materials made to put in a similar way. So, just knock my mic. But, yeah, it's a remake. Nintendo literally confirmed it in their survey. If the eye test isn't enough for you, developers, when we look at we actually have the case of a developer talking about this game, referring to it as a remake and not a remaster because it's been remade. It's not being enhanced based with the original code. So that's just definitions for you. But anyway, the frame rate thing doesn't bother me because of what it is. Had Metroid Prime Remastered been 30 FPS, that would have been a problem. I would have still probably bought it, but that would have been a problem because it's, it's a game that's more about fast-paced gameplay and fluid movement and combat. So that makes more sense. A turn-based RPG, not really. So I think it's fine. Anyway. Let's see. How many votes? A few more people voted on the poll. I'll leave it there for now. Okay. Dr. Martin asks me Metacritic prediction for Paper Mario. I imagine 91 and 93. See, you're raising the score. The original Metacritic score for Thousand Year Door was an 87. And you're thinking it's going to be higher. You could be right. But I'm going to say the game's going to come in at an 86 on Metacritic. 1 point shy of the original. But if you account for today's modern standards where games are, games have to even be bigger and better than they were before, I would say that suggests a substantial improvement over the original high quality game. And I don't think that having new content in the game is going to move the needle in terms of reviews. It might a little bit. And that the jury's still out on there. We don't know if there's new content in the game or not. But really, the reason I'm predicting 86 is just because I've seen other remakes and remasters come out that are good, and they end up being a few points less. And then that's just pretty much it. That's kind of where I'm going from with that one. I hope it's a 93. Let's bring it. That would be awesome. Like, imagine they add like a whole other expansive Luigi's Quest to it, and people are like, well, yo, this is like really refreshing extra gameplay that really completes Thousand Year Door, which is already an amazing experience. And it leads to people going in the 90 direction or whatever. Or maybe a lot of people who never played the original, like, whoa, this game has aged extremely well. This story is just really fun and cool, and the gameplay is just so good. You know, I don't think it'll get in the 90s, but maybe it will. I'm not saying it wouldn't deserve it. I'm sure there are going to be sites that will give it 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10. I don't disagree with the notion that Thousand Year Door should be considered a masterpiece. You know, I think there are just certain kind of games that tend to review in certain ways. You know, like a Paper Mario. I don't know if Nintendo could ever put together a Paper Mario game that would be a Game of the Year title. You know what I mean? Like, it's Paper Mario. I think Paper Mario kind of puts it in a certain category, if that makes any sense. And what's interesting is the way I look at Thousand Year Door, like Thousand Year Door, I consider, even though I haven't played it from what I understand of it, I still look at it as one of the best GameCube games, right? There's a reason it's being remade. So, we'll see. Cloud9 Atsui, do you see Thousand Year Door selling a couple million? Yes. At least a couple million. For sure. But with that, I think we will wrap it up for the evening. Thank you everyone for listening and watching and liking the stream. I very much appreciate it. But I'll see you really soon. Take care. Have a good one.